guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Rosie Henshaw. If you're new here, then welcome. It's lovely to meet you. And if you're already existing guys, then thank you so much for coming back. So I do apologise about the lighting now. It isn't going to be the same lighting we'll see in the video because the video was filmed earlier in the daylight. But obviously the kids have had to have their normal bedtime routine and dinner and stuff, so now I'm back filming at the beginning part of the video. So today's video is a DIY wall panelling. So I'm going to show you on a very small scale how that I achieved the wall panelling that I've done. So I've done various wall panelling styles throughout my house. I've done the shaker peg rail style in my dining room. I did do a little how I done it video attached to it. That was probably about just after Christmas that was. And I've also done the straight line panelling, is it called shaker style? I've got tongue and groove in the dining room, shaker style in the hallway, and then in the little toilet, we've done the downstairs toilet. Once the floors were tiled, we've had that done, so I'm going to show you that at the end as well. I'm going to insert a little clip at the end so you can see what it looks like once painted. But I want to just quickly talk about wood before we get into the video, and I'll show you how we do it. The wood I use are these strips of wood, so they are about 4 centimetres wide, and they come in about, you know, half a centimetre wide, so is it, I don't know, 5mm thickness, and then they come in long lengths. These are from B&Q and these come in 240 centimetre lengths. I get a bit confused because they come up as like 2400 length, but that is actually 240 centimetres. You can get thicker material. I have had the thicker ones out in the hallway, but because I'm doing the shaker style, but like with the little blocks in the toilet and in my kitchen, this was nice and thick enough. You can get these long strips for about £3. I think mine was about £3.50 for big long strips of it. I only needed 2 strips for my kitchen, and I've still got enough left to do the other side, the other wall. And also I picked up a length of this, and this was £4 in there. And this is just the Pinarero. It's just like a little bit of a trim. If I show you at the end what it looks like, it just looks like this. It's like a piece of celery. And I've got the thin version, and I used half on one part of the wall, and then the second half part of the wall, which I'll do in the next couple of days, this will use this. So you can basically panel a room or a wall. I mean, I used, I think it was about 5 of these. I think it cost about £38 to do my whole big wall in my hallway. But my little toilet, I'd choose with leftover wood because it really didn't take that much wood to do. But I will say this, it is much cheaper if you can get a sheet of MDF and go into B&Q and get them to cut it down to your sizes or the widths that you want it. But because the cutting service wasn't available when I wanted to do mine, because I done mine during isolation, it wasn't available to do that. It does work out a lot cheaper because you just pay for the sheet of MDF and they cut it down for free for you. You'll just have to check your local B&Q stores or any DIY stores that you go to if they're having that cutting service at the moment due to coronavirus. But I wanted to talk about that. Also, the grip adhesive that I use is No More Nails. You can use, I know some people use Pink Grip and different ones. They even do like home brands for like Wicks and B&Q. I'd use No More Nails because I know it's good. I've even hung up peg rails and stuff in my dining room with it, not having to use any screws, and I can hang some quite heavy things from it, and it's really withstood the test of time. So I use No More Nails. And as for my caulk, I just got the 99p one from Wicks. Still got loads left over from when I'd done the panelling in the dining room. So grab yourselves a nice cup of tea, and hopefully you'll enjoy this video. And yeah, hope you'll enjoy it. Also as well, a little heads up, I'm not painting it in the finish because I have to let the caulk dry at the end. So what I'm going to do is show you straight away into my little toilet, show you what it looks like. I don't use a primer when I paint my wooden panelling at all. I just tend to paint it with white emulsion so that it's all the same colour, because sometimes the wood or the MDF can soak up the paint quite quickly, leaving it to be a different colour to what's on the walls behind. So I just find by giving it like a cheap coat of even a tester pot, going over the wood with some white, make sure it's all the same colour, then go over with your fancy coloured paint. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and you'll subscribe if you haven't already because it's completely free to do so. Thank you again for all the comments and the likes and sticking around, knowing I'm not commenting back at the moment, and I know I'm not uploading as frequently as I normally do, but obviously it's a 6 weeks holidays and I'm just trying to do it when I can find the time to do it, because the kids are pretty full on. Any mum would know that they're pretty full on. So yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy this video guys. I'm Rosie Henshaw, hopefully enjoy it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of wood, and with our piece of wood you're going to need a pencil, your spirit level and your tape measure. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughly place my piece of wood where I want it to go, or MDF, whatever you're doing. Kind of marry the top part up. This is obviously if you're having a border at the top, which I just think it finishes it off quite nicely. Once you've lined it up to roughly where you want it, get your spirit level, put it on top, make sure that it's nice and straight before you start marking anything off, and it does need to come down up a touch. Make sure that the spirit level bubble is directly in between the two lines that you see. And then what we're going to do is, just to do this, you don't have to do this, but I like to do this, so I just mark off roughly. Now I know it's straight, I'm going to roughly mark off, and it just makes it nice and easy when I do go to put my wood back up. I've kind of got a line of where to put it. Also, while it's up there and it's mirrored up to it, make sure it's on the line. What I'm going to do is I'm then going to get my tape measure. Now you could, if you've got like a base here, you could always line this off here, where the line of the door frame is, but that isn't always accurate. I mean, we're going to be going in with a caulk anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but if you want to be a little bit more accurate, what I like to do is I like to get my tape measure, get the tape measure out, hold it nice and straight, and it's kind of helpful if you do have that line, because you can hold it on the line, you know you're not doing it at an angle and over measuring. The saying is, measure twice, cut once, because I know that I'm a bit of a measure 3 times and still cut 6 times, and then, so that is 90.3 and a bit, that works out. So what we'll do is then on the piece of wood, it's got a little ledge on the end of the tape measure, so it's quite good because you can sort of latch it onto the piece of wood, it holds it for you, pull it down, and then what you can do is then with your pencil, make the little mark where it comes to, and I've already done this, just so you can see. And then what I like to do, is then I like to get my either ruler, something straight, but I just use this sort of like spirit level, join the lines up and then draw the line nice and straight, and it gives me a nice straight line to then use with the saw. So we'll get on. Sorry guys, I did attempt to start to show you how I'd saw this in the garden, and it was getting a little bit tricky in the sun glare. You couldn't really see what was going on because it had to be quite low to the ground. I don't have a cutting station, and I just use a handheld saw. And what I do is I've got 2 breeze blocks in the garden. I place where I want to cut it directly between the 2 breeze blocks. Make sure you've got your protective gloves on, your mask and your goggles in case you get any splinters or shards of dust back. Start making a little incision along the line of where you're going to be cutting it, and then you build up a ribbon back and forward, and it eventually cuts your wood. I did want to film that, but this is how I'm going to be cutting all my pieces of wood. I'm sorry I'm not going to show you, but obviously I can't edit, so, and I have no one to help me film. It is literally just me doing this. So I wish I could. I have like a little kit of like a little setup area, but it really isn't working. Me having my phone on a candle holder and trying to attempt to do it in the garden is just not working. But you get the idea. I mean, there must be so many tutorials to show you how to saw wood. It's pretty self-explanatory, but this is how I saw the wood. And I don't have any fancy cutters or anything. I think this cost about £3 from B&Q. So that's how I'm going to cut all of my wood, and once it's all cut, then I'm going to get back onto showing you how you put it onto the wall. Now we're on to the part where we've cut the top piece of the wood, measured this off. It's also the same distance at the bottom, so we've just measured that out. So I've cut the 2 pieces, and now the 2 pieces have been cut. I'm going to be sticking them on ready so that I can measure the other pieces that I need to do. Now what you're going to need is one of these kind of syringe type, I don't know what they're actually called, caulking gun, that's it, a caulking gun. So to open these, you press the silver nozzle at the back, whatever colour it is, press it down and pull this lever, and your bottle will fall out. Obviously that's if you've already got one, you need to refill it. But how you would do this is you would basically, these come already undone, like that. You would cut the top off with a Stanley knife or a sharp knife, fold this over and screw it onto the top, like this. You put your nozzle through the hole at the end, like that. Make sure that it's placed in it nice and neat and hold it tight to the end. And then by pumping this, it will bring the nozzle into the back end like this. Push it up until you'll start to see a flow of instant adhesive coming through the nozzle, and then you're ready to go with your either grab adhesive or your caulk. So I use this gun for my caulking as well. And so all I'm going to do on the back piece of the wood that I'm going to be using, I'm just going to be doing a sort of squiggly pattern like this on the back, and that just ensures that it's going to stick nice on the back. So I'm just going to do it like that. I will recommend sometimes once you've pressed this, you do start to get overspill come out at the end, so I always just put a piece of wood or a bit of paper down, preferably a bit of wood because it doesn't get so stuck. So when I go to lay it down on the side, I always make sure I've got a bit of wood underneath so that I protect my surfaces. So once it's like this, you're going to be sticking it onto the wall. Don't forget, we've already got our line so that we know that it's going to be straight. We will go in with a spirit level as well, just to double check. but we've got our line pretty straight, and this is an instant grab adhesive. Now if you do have walls that are really out, and all you're going to do is with the palm of our hand basically, we're just going to sort of make sure we give it a good slap. That's obviously not the technical term, but you know what I mean. Give it a good slap, make sure it's down. Now if your walls are really out, with a little tacking hammer and a tacking nail, you could just put a few. Make sure you get them further in than the wood though, so that when it comes to filling it, you're not going to see where they were. So we're just going to do that. We've got a tiny little gap here because the wall actually is tighter here, and then it verves in a little bit, and where I measured it right to the back, it's where the walls aren't perfect. So it doesn't matter because you've got your caulking gun, and we're going to be able to fill all this seamlessly, and no one will even know there was a gap there. So we've also left a little gap that side as well. And sometimes it's good not to do it too completely flush, because if you ever had problems with your worktop and you want these to come off, it's not going to cause a damage to your panelling, because the thing they can do is they can just get the caulk out with a Stanley gun. A Stanley gun, yeah, that exists, a Stanley knife. I've also done exactly the same with the bottom section. So the bottom section is being rested above this skirting, so it's literally just been laid on top of the skirting, so however straight the skirting is, which it might mean it's a little bit out, it doesn't matter, it's just gone along the line. I've done exactly the same process with sticking it on, and once it's stuck on, we then measure between this part of the wood here and then the other part of the wood. It's the same concept if you're doing this on a full wall as well. So I done mine from the picture rail last time, so I measured it from the picture rail to the skirting board to get my length of wood. So this is coming up at 74.5. So then what I'm going to do is, on another piece of wood, I will just work out what 70.5 is. 74.5, sorry. Mark it off, cut it out, and we'll be ready with our strips. And because I'm going to be doing 3 of these, I need to cut out 1, 2, 3, 4. I need to cut out 4 pieces, guys. So, and then we'll get back to you with that as well. So I've measured this side piece here. So I did measure a piece for across here, but then I realised I'm not going to be using the door frame. So on my other piece of furniture, I completely forgot. I already had like a cornice in the corner. So with this on the door frame, I'm going to want beading along the sides as well, basically build a box frame. So what I've done is I've measured down here, and I'm going to do this first and then cut a piece for the centre. I just think it looks a lot more neater like that. So I've measured that down, that was 74.3. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get, so that was my Millie calling me then, it's Millie, she's on FaceTime to her friend, and I thought she was calling me. I thought, oh, 1 minute, I've got where my mum is. And we're just going to pop that in, hopefully that will fit nice and flush. Lovely, a tiny little gap, but that's fine, because yet again, like I say, we're going to go in with a caulk. Make sure it's nice and flush and flat though, because otherwise that makes it a little bit harder once you're caulking it to get it done. And we're going to caulk all in the gaps as well. So we're just building up a nice little square box. Now, because this section here dips in a little bit towards the cupboard because the worktop comes out further, when I do this one, I am just going to do it to there, and then once it's painted, you won't see, it'll just like it's about to start a new piece of panelling, and it'll make it nice and easy for that cupboard to open. So I'm going to measure it from there, so it's also 74.5. I'm going to cut that, and then I'm going to come back as well and show you that piece as well. I'm just going to cook this section now. This has also been measured. Going to get my spirit level as well, make sure that this line's straight, because obviously this isn't nothing to do with, that's it, nice and straight. And we're going to make sure we push all this in nice and tightly. So now we've got our framework. This is when we're going to start adjusting, and actually I think having 2 more pieces in there will look lovely. So we're just going to measure across here to get the distance now. What would be between there, or what you could do is obviously the width of the wood here is what, however many centimetres, I think it's about 5 centimetres wide. So then that's 10 centimetres either side. So whatever this was, you can just take the 10 centimetres off, because you take away that and that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut all that wood once that's done. So I believe this was about 94, so it would be about 84. So then we're just going to cut another piece. We're going to have a long piece over here like that. and then we're going to have the tiny little grids as well. So we'll get in and we'll measure that and cut that as well. I'm sorry this is a bit thorough, you may just want to do the simple line one like I've got in my hallway, which I'll show you at the end of the video. But this is how I've done the one in my downstairs loo, which I'm going to show you as well once it's done. Because once this is done, it looks a bit crazy while you're doing it, but once it's finished, it looks so lovely. So I'm going to do that and then we'll get back as well. So this piece has been measured. I've also put the no more nails on it, so we're going to get our tape measure. We're going to roughly place it to where we want it. I want a nice deep section like that. You can kind of press it on the wall a little bit just to hold it while you get the spirit level. And that's perfectly straight, it's saying. Now because that has slipped, oh actually that's slipped a little bit, hasn't it? That's why. You know why that slipped? I moved it when I've done that, right, so I need to push that back up. Yeah, right, and we're going to push it on nice and tightly. Obviously always stand back and have an adjustment, because even though it may on paper be perfectly straight with the spirit level, you always want it to look right as well, because sometimes if it doesn't look right, it doesn't matter how straight you get it, it just doesn't look right. So I'm thinking a little bit more like that is more straight. So guys, I cut the pieces and I've glued them on, but what I've done is I could have made them a little bit more equal. They looked a bit odd, so I've made these two either side the same size and then made the one in the middle look a little bit larger, so it gives it more of a look of being a bit more grand. I know that sounds a bit silly, but it didn't look right when I done it. But all of this you can do to eye, measure it out and remeasure. But I like the section in the middle a little bit bigger, and I'm thinking I might even do peg rail on here, because this is going to be eventually a utility room, and it might be quite nice to hang all like nice tea towels and stuff on, like my cleaning brushes. So we are going to get on to caulking now. I could add a little bit of trim at the top if I wanted. I've got that fancy trim and I've got that in the bathroom. Actually, I think I'm going to leave it and leave it a little bit more shaker in here. I'll see how we go. Do you know what? I'm going to measure it off, and I am going to put that bit of trim at the top, because I think that will really finish it off and look lovely. So I'm going to measure that out, go and cut that, stick that on, and then we're going to get in and do the caulking. I've done the trim at the top, and I've changed over the nozzle to the decorator's caulk, and all I'm going to do is you're going to need like a wet cloth or a rag, something like that to wipe off, and all I'm going to do is just run along by pressing it very, very slowly whilst going along. Run it along the top, the caulk, and really you want to do all of the areas, so like all these bits that look really unneat now, they're all going to be joined up together and look perfectly neat. Make sure you get all the product in all the gaps. And then you're going to get a little bit droppy. I'm going to wipe that one sec, and then you just go around and doing all the gaps. Obviously I wouldn't recommend trying to do too much, but while it's still wet, that's fine, that will come off and we can wipe that off. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to run my finger. You can get these tools that make it perfectly smooth. And I'm going to come in with the camera so that you can see, and I just use this rag or wipe or whatever you're doing, get it nice and smooth, and then I like to go over it again just to make sure that you don't get no lines, so that once you paint it, it's all perfectly smooth. Run my finger down this way, and it just joins and makes all the wood look flush together. It doesn't look like that you've put separate pieces of wood on. And what I like to do is I like to do it the first time, but I find sometimes it can sink into the wood. So what I like to do is the first time go over it, leave it overnight, and then the next day I like to go over it one more time, leave it another day, and then paint it. But I am going to show you what it looks like once it's finished and it's painted. I'm going to go and do a little tiny bit more, because there's a little bit more of a gap here, so you can go back over if you do see any instant gaps. Just run my finger along the top, make sure that we blend it all in nicely. And you can fill in the gaps with this, but I like to fill in the gaps with some wood filler, which I don't have actually. I thought I did, but I've run out because I've done so much paneling recently. So what I'm going to do is I'll run to B&Q and get some wood filler, and I'll fill the gaps with that. But at the moment, I'm going to leave these little joins here. So the joins between the wood here, I will fill with wood filler and then sand them down. I wouldn't recommend doing them with caulk, because you find, what I find anyway, that you will eventually see them. And I don't really like that look of that. So I'm going to get the camera and show you. These gaps here are going to be filled with wood filler, so they'll be seamless once they're done and sanded. But if you have a little quick look down here, it's away from the wall, so you can see the gaps where it's joined to the wall. But once you caulk it, you don't get that. It's all nice and joint flush, nice and done, and obviously just make sure that you do it all nice and neat and going in the corners lovely. And then wipe it with a damp rag, and then once these are filled, it would just all be really nice and joint. Change in lighting and stuff, but this is actually the downstairs toilet, and this is what I've panelled. So once it's painted and primed, it does look really nice, and it does come together really nicely. So yeah, it does look really nice once it comes together.